Motorcycles, cars, music, three things that I grew up in, and I'm blessed enough to be able to continue.
For nearly a decade, the roar of engines and the gleam of fresh chrome from Count's Customs filled our screens. Counting Cars, a spin-off born from the wild success of Pawn Stars, became a monster hit in its own right. It ran on the History Channel from 2012 for 10 seasons, capturing the hearts of car nuts and reality TV fans alike. At the center of it all was Danny, the Count, Koker, a bandana-clad rocker with a photographic memory for cars and a true passion for turning rust into gold. That we watched Danny and his crew, Kevin, Ryan, Horny Mike, Rolly, and the rest, transform forgotten classics into jaw-dropping masterpieces. The show wasn't just about the cars, it was about the brotherhood, the playful trash talk in the shop, and the thrill of the hunt on the streets of Las Vegas. It felt real, like a genuine peek inside a world where skill and passion were all that mattered. The shop felt like a family, built on loyalty and a shared love for the metal. But what we didn't see on camera was that the pressure of fame, the insane production schedules, and the lure of money were creating deep cracks in that family foundation. On television, everything looked like a well-oiled machine, but behind the scenes, things were falling apart. Familiar faces would suddenly vanish between seasons, with no explanation and no goodbye. Rumors swirled in fan forums and on social media, but Danny Koker, a guy known for being loud and proud, stayed unusually quiet. For years, he's been the stoic leader, the passionate artist dealing with problems he rarely mentioned. But now, after years of silence, the truth is finally coming out through public records and insider stories about the employees who, behind the scenes, created chaos, cost him a fortune, and nearly torpedoed the brand he built from the ground up. While Danny himself hasn't put out a public list, the evidence points to 5 distinct types of employees whose actions forced his hand and changed the show forever. Every workplace has its quiet types, the ones who fly under the radar and rarely get in front of the camera. But sometimes, it's the quiet ones who do the most damage. On Counting Cars, that person was Joseph Frontiera. Most viewers probably wouldn't even recognize his face, because he wasn't welding frames or airbrushing flames. He was handling something far more important, the company's money. Frontiera was hired in June 2013 through a professional staffing agency to handle the books for Count's Customs. With the show blowing up, the business was expanding fast, and having a trustworthy person managing the finances was critical. For a while, everything seemed fine. But in 2016, that quiet accountant suddenly became the center of a very loud and very public scandal. In March of that year, court documents revealed that Count's Customs had filed a lawsuit against Joseph Frontiera, accusing him of embezzling more than $75,000 from the business. This wasn't just a case of sloppy accounting, the allegations were serious and specific. According to the lawsuit, Frontiera had allegedly used company money to pay for a whole range of personal luxuries. This included a hefty down payment on his own Range Rover and buying airline tickets for personal trips. What made it so much worse was how he allegedly covered his tracks. The lawsuit claimed that Frontiera had signature stamps made of Danny Koker and his right-hand man, Kevin Mack, without anyone's permission. This allowed him to stamp and approve checks on his own, giving himself a key to the company vault. It was a calculated betrayal. On top of that, he was also accused of failing to pay the company's taxes on time, which resulted in a painful $18,000 IRS penalty, adding a massive insult to an already catastrophic injury. The whole scheme started to unravel when the shop noticed irregularities in its accounting. An internal investigation was launched, and a background check revealed something shocking. Frontiera allegedly had a history of embezzlement with a former employer in Florida, a giant red flag that the hiring firm had supposedly missed. For Danny, this wasn't just about the money, it was a deep and personal betrayal. Count's Customs was built on trust. For someone in such a sensitive position to break that trust so completely was a major blow. In a sign of how seriously he took it, Danny didn't just sue Frontiera. The lawsuit also named the staffing agency, Randstad, for professional negligence, claiming they should have vetted him properly. The lawsuit made headlines, shocking fans who were used to seeing on-screen squabbles, not real-world felony accusations. The fallout was swift. Frontiera was fired, and a warrant was reportedly issued for his arrest on a felony theft charge, though it became difficult to serve since he had moved back to Florida. Perhaps the most telling part of this whole affair was how Frontiera simply vanished. He went completely off the grid. While the case moved through the legal system, many of the final details remain unresolved in the public eye. Danny Koker never made a big public speech about it. For a man who loves to tell stories, that silence speaks volumes. The message was clear: the betrayal was so deep, it wasn't even worth talking about. It just had to be dealt with, legally and permanently. In the early seasons of Counting Cars, Scott Jones was a force to be reckoned with. As the shop's manager and bookkeeper, he was the numbers guy, the voice of reason, and often the guy who had to tell Danny no. While Danny ran on passion, Scott ran on deadlines and budgets. Their on-screen arguments were legendary, usually about project costs or Danny's habit of falling in love with the cars he was supposed to be selling. Then, after season 2, he was just gone. His exit was sudden and was never explained on the show, leaving fans to guess what happened. Rumors flew that his constant headbutting with Danny was the cause. Others suggested he embezzled money, a theory that gained steam after the Frontiera scandal but was never proven. The quiet, official story was that he moved to Tennessee with his family, but while Scott himself wasn't accused of betrayal, his time as manager was marked by one of the most damaging lawsuits in the shop's history, a case that exposed the chaos happening behind the scenes. In 2014, a couple named Paul and Jeanette Hurt filed a lawsuit against Counts Customs. They had contacted the shop in 2013 to restore a 1967 Ford Mustang as a birthday gift. They claimed they dealt with Scott Jones, who was the manager at the time. According to their complaint, Scott quoted them $50,000 for the entire bill. Here's where it got messy. The Hurts alleged that a key part of the deal was that their car's restoration would be featured on an episode of Counting Cars. They were supposedly told that because of this, the show's producers would chip in an extra $20,000, making the project affordable for them. Trusting the shop's reputation, they paid the full $50,000. The first red flag popped up when the couple was told the History Channel would no longer be filming their car's restoration. Then they were told Scott Jones no longer worked there. When the Hurts visited the shop in October 2013, they were horrified. They claimed almost no work had been done, and the car the shop had bought wasn't even the right model. To make matters worse, they were then allegedly told this different car would cost them $30,000, nearly 3 times the original quote for acquiring a vehicle. Feeling like they'd been taken for a ride, the couple demanded a full refund. Their lawsuit accused Counts Customs of fraud and breach of contract. While Scott Jones was not named as a defendant in the lawsuit, his role as the person who made the initial deal was at the center of the couple's claims. The case painted a picture of a shop that was disorganized and willing to overpromise to cash in on its TV fame. The lawsuit generated a ton of negative press, hitting the brand right where it hurt, its credibility. The case was eventually settled out of court, but the damage was done. It showed the serious growing pains Counts Customs was facing. Scott Jones's departure happened right in the middle of this mess, and while his reasons for leaving may have been personal, his name is forever linked to a lawsuit that exposed the chaotic mix of craftsmanship and television production at the shop. He represents a time when the business's practices couldn't keep up with its promises, making him the source of a major, and very public, headache for Danny. Not every problem employee leaves in a blaze of scandal. Sometimes, the damage comes from a slow decay of team chemistry, a clash of egos, or simply watching key people walk away. 2 of the most noticeable departures from Counting Cars were Rolly Sabo and Shannon Ikaw. Neither was involved in a crime, but their exits left a hole in the show and raised questions that have lingered for years. Rolly Sabo was one of the show's most beloved characters. As the shop's detailer, he was the guy who made every car shine. With his thick Hungarian accent, he was often the target of horny Mike's pranks and provided a lot of the show's laughs. Fans loved him. For 6 seasons, he was a core part of the Count's Customs family, then, poof. He was gone. His exit was never explained, leaving a huge hole in the show's dynamic. Rumors went wild. One story claimed his work van, full of expensive equipment, was stolen, and that pushed him to leave. Others figured he just wanted to start his own thing. The truth seems to be more about professional ambition. After leaving the show, Rolly did indeed start his own business, Rock and Rolly Custom Detailing. While that's a normal career move, for a show built on the idea of a tight-knit family, having a key member leave to become a competitor can feel like a disruption. When a popular employee goes their own way, it can crack that carefully crafted image of unity. Rolly's absence was a sign that the original family was starting to break apart. The departure of Shannon Ika was, in many ways, an even bigger deal. Shannon was the number one in the bike shop, the master builder responsible for the show's incredible custom motorcycles. Danny himself praised him as one of the best. Shannon wasn't a sidekick, he was a creative force. Like Rolly, Shannon's role on the show slowly faded before he disappeared completely, with no official explanation. For many viewers, this was a massive blow to the show's authenticity. If the master bike builder is gone, then who's building the bikes? His departure fueled speculation that there were deeper issues at the shop. Was it about money? Creative differences? Or was it simply burnout from the brutal pace of making a TV show? Danny Koker has talked about the immense pressure of filming, saying he sometimes worked 18-hour days and had to turn down big jobs because of the schedule. That kind of environment takes a toll. For a master craftsman like Shannon, the pressure to rush projects for a TV deadline might have gone against everything he stood for professionally. Losing top talent like Rolly and Shannon represents a different kind of problem for Danny. They weren't criminals, but their exit symbolized the slow disintegration of the crew fans loved. It highlighted the challenge of keeping talented, ambitious people happy under the crazy conditions of reality TV. Each departure chipped away at the show's soul and forced Danny to constantly rebuild, a frustrating reality hidden just behind the camera. Fame is a powerful drug, and on a hit reality show, it can mess with anyone. One of the biggest problems Danny Koker faced wasn't a single person, but a recurring character type, the ego. Before Counting Cars, Counts Customs was a passion project that became a business. The crew was made up of talented guys who just loved to build things. But when the cameras showed up, everything changed. Suddenly, these mechanics were TV stars, recognized everywhere they went. For some, it was great. For others, it inflated their ego to the size of a monster truck and poisoned the shop's atmosphere. The on-screen drama, which often seemed like fun and games, started to turn into real-world resentment. Disagreements that could have been settled with a quick chat were now blown up for television, creating real friction. Employees who got more screen time started to think they were bigger than the brand. They weren't part of a team anymore, they were individual stars who thought they deserved special treatment. This created a toxic work environment. Imagine trying to manage a complicated car restoration when some of your team is more worried about their camera angles than getting the work done right. Deadlines were missed not because of technical problems, but because of petty fights and ego trips. The collaborative spirit that a custom shop needs to survive was replaced by a competition to see who could shine the brightest. For Danny Koker, this was a nightmare. He built his shop on respect, hard work, and shared passion. The invasion of TV egos threatened to destroy everything. He was no longer just a shop owner, he was a reluctant manager of difficult personalities. He had to play referee, soothe bruised egos, and make tough calls about who was there for the work and who was just there for the fame. The need to create drama for each episode only made it worse. The more an employee acted out, the more screen time they got, creating a vicious cycle. What started as fake tension for the cameras turned into real bitterness that lasted long after the film crew went home. Danny had to part ways with several unnamed employees over the years simply because their egos got too big for the garage. They weren't necessarily bad guys or untalented builders, but they had forgotten that the real stars of the show were supposed to be the cars, not them. These unnamed egos were an insidious threat. It was a problem that couldn't be solved with one firing or a lawsuit. It was a constant, exhausting battle to protect the soul of his shop from the corrosive influence of fame. In the custom car world, a shop's reputation is everything. It's built on trust, quality, and honest dealing. When a business gets put on a global TV show, that reputation gets amplified, but so does the temptation for people on the inside to exploit it. Beyond the embezzlement and ego trips, Danny had to deal with a darker element: the schemers and grifters within his own ranks. These weren't employees who committed one big crime like Joseph Frontiera. Their game was more subtle, a pattern of using the shop's fame for their own personal gain. They were the ones running secret scams and side deals, slowly poisoning the trust with clients and chipping away at the integrity of the Count's Customs brand. One of the most common scams was the side deal. An employee, using the shop's famous name, might approach a client and offer to do a project for them on the side. They'd use the shop's reputation to get the job, then do the work off the books, often using shop tools and time, while pocketing all the cash. Another classic move was the upcharge scam. An employee dealing with a client might inflate the cost of parts or labor, skimming the difference for themselves. They'd justify the crazy prices by saying it was the, as seen on TV, premium, when really, they were the only one profiting. The lawsuit with the hurt couple, while focused on broken promises, hinted at this kind of shady behavior when the price of their car allegedly tripled overnight. These schemes created a mess. Official clients who went through the front door got the real Count's Customs experience. But anyone who got pulled into a side deal by a rogue employee often ended up with shoddy work, missed deadlines, and no one to call when things went wrong. And when those deals went sour, the angry customer didn't blame the one employee, they blamed Count's Customs, leaving Danny to clean up a mess he knew nothing about. This kind of thing was incredibly hard to police. It all happened in private conversations and handshake deals. Danny had to trust his employees to be good ambassadors for his brand, and when they broke that trust, the damage was huge. It led to unhappy customers, potential lawsuits, and a black eye on his reputation in the tight-knit car community, where your word is everything. Over the years, Danny had to let go of several people for this kind of betrayal. These firings were never made public because admitting you have schemers in your shop is terrible for business. It was a silent cancer that Danny had to cut out, quietly but firmly. He had to bring in stricter rules and tighten his inner circle to protect what he'd built. These shadow schemers stole more than just money, they stole the shop's good name. In the world of reality TV, characters come and go, but Counting Cars was supposed to be different. It was supposed to be about loyalty, skill, and a real love for cars. That's what made these scandals and exits hit so hard. Each of the situations we've talked about left a permanent mark on the shop and the show. Who was your favorite person on Counting Cars? And do you think the pressure of being on TV is what ultimately caused all the drama? Let us know what you think in the comments below. When you peel back the layers of chrome and candy paint, the story of Counting Cars is a warning about the real price of fame. For every beautiful car we saw roll out of that garage, there was a hidden world of problems threatening to bring it all down. The betrayer, the manager in the middle of a crisis, the departing heart of the crew, the egos, and the schemers. These weren't just isolated problems. They were symptoms of a business struggling to hold onto its soul while being crushed by the demands of Hollywood. The embezzlement scandal was a gut punch that cost the company a fortune in both money and morale. The lawsuit that erupted during Scott Jones's tenure exposed the operational cracks that can form when a shop's promises get bigger than its ability to deliver. The quiet departures of fan favorites like Rolly and Shannon showed the slow erosion of the original family, a casualty of burnout from the TV grind. And woven through it all were the constant, draining battles against egos and grifters who saw the Count's Customs brand as something to be used, not protected. Through it all, Danny Koker has kept going. He fought the legal battles, cleaned house, and managed the drama, all while trying to stay true to the passion that started it all. He still runs Count's Customs and even offers free tours to the fans who made him famous. He's also poured his energy into his other great love, music, with his band Count 77. The show may not be what it once was, but Danny Koker is still a Las Vegas legend, a symbol of resilience. His story is a powerful reminder that behind the roar of the engines, the toughest restoration job of all is often just protecting your dream when the world seems determined to tear it apart.